So you guys are getting a nice hole there, aren't you? We'll let that run for a little while. The old pig feeder, I've talked before about why I don't like this thing, and to be fair, I've got my money's worth out of it. I built this probably, gosh, it's been far over 10 years, maybe closer to 15 years ago now. And it served its purpose, but we can do better. It's got holes in it. I've replaced the floor once before. The lid is now gone and Lord knows where. And probably the thing that I dislike about this feeder the most, well, two things. One, it will not stand on its own. Like, I can't just put it out in the middle of the pig pen. It has to be up against a fence so that I can tie it to the fence so that it doesn't fall over. Because it's an open feeder, rodents or anything else can get in and get at that food. And my last big gripe with this is that even though I built it in such a way that I thought I was going to be able to fill it up with several bags of feed, I tried doing that a couple times and I just didn't really get all the measurements quite right, and they would end up wasting a bunch of that feed and just dumping it out onto the ground. So I want to build a feeder that resolves all these problems, and I've got an idea how to do it. That's what's going on today on Farmertylerranch. That's a little better. I've got these 4 triangular shaped pieces here. I cut these out years ago, and what I was gonna do with them was make a bin to hold pig feed in. Obviously I never got around to doing that, but I do still have these pieces, and I think they'll be perfect for my pig feeder. And because they've been sitting here for so long, we need to get them cleaned up before we can weld them all together. Three more to go. Well, we've encountered our first problem. I'm not sure how well it's going to show on camera, but if I was to make the entire cone the way that these pieces are cut out, I don't feel like we have enough slope. I think you'd get a lot of feed caught in there, and not to mention the fact that this feeder would end up being too big for what I want it to be. So in order to fix this, it's pretty easy. We just need to make some new cuts here and change that angle a little bit. Not only will that make the perimeter of what will be a square smaller, but it'll also make that slope a little bit steeper. So there you go. All these years sitting in the shop and they weren't even cut out right. Callie, you don't want to be around when this saw's going. Let's go outside. Come on. These metal circular saws are awesome. They make quick work of jobs that used to take a long time, but they are loud. So when I'm running this thing, I get the dogs out of the shop. that's my complaint with these saws. When you get cutting, you really can't see what the blade's doing. You just have to go off of the guide. And then when you get to the end of your cut and the guide is no longer on the line, you don't really know where you're at. And if you stop, usually this happens and you can't really get going again. Oh, that's hot. Let's try this again. That's looking a lot better. Just gotta do the same thing again. Just tacks for now. Kind of goofed up here. I should have moved my stand before I put that last piece in there, because now it's going to be kind of difficult to get these get this off of here. That should work. There. What I'm trying to do now is sort of visualize how high the cone is going to be off of the lower pan that the hogs are eating out of. And I'm having a tough time with it. When I go into these projects, I usually have a pretty good idea of how I'm going to make things. But sometimes as stuff starts taking shape in front of you, you don't know how you want things to be until you actually see them. So I think the cone needs to be higher, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So I think the next best step would be to make the lower pan that the feed will dump into, and then we can kind of play with how high we want the cone, because that will determine how high we want the walls, because I want to be able to load this thing fairly easily and not have to get a ladder to do it. I need a 22 by 22 square, and I don't have that because I'm trying to use stuff that I've got laying around. So we're going to cut out two pieces that are 22 by 11 and we'll butt them together. Don't you want to be a shop dog? You want to be a shop dog? Okay, go outside. I'm looking at this, and to me it doesn't look like the gap is going to be big enough when the pigs are closer to full grown. So in order to cure that problem, we got to lift the top cone up a little bit, and that'll give them some more room to put their heads in there. By doing that, that means that we're going to need to add a little spout there to the bottom so that the feed doesn't overflow, but we got to figure out where we want that level to be, and then we can determine how long to make that spout. I think we're pretty good right here. The bottom of the cone is about 12 inches from the floor of the pan. So the edge of the pan is 6 inches tall. So we want this cone, so we want the sock, the extension, to come down below that by a couple of inches so that it's harder for them to overflow it. So I'm thinking to do about an 8-inch drop, which will leave me a 4-inch gap on the bottom for the feed to come out. And I think that is gonna be about what I want. You can start to sort of get the idea here. Obviously there's a lot more work to do, but this is the concept. So next I've just got to figure out how tall I want to make the walls on this thing. The taller they are, the more feed we get in there, but also the harder it is to load. So I was thinking of maybe adding 20 inches, that'd put it right here. Be a little bit more difficult to load it that way, but not impossible. I mean, really, I feel like I just want to make this as big as I possibly can and still be able to load it, because then once it's full, it's just that much less times you have to refill it. I think as it sits now, I could probably already fit like 5 or 6 50-pound bags in there, and then adding those walls is just going to make it more. So I guess at some point we got to think about the weight. You know, but yeah, if we get like a half ton of feed in here, that'd be pretty nice. Number 49 here is awful generous. This little blonde calf behind her that's nursing, it's not hers. Hey, old boy, how you doing? Looks like the flies are getting you. I guess we need to get that fly sprayer turned back on. We're reaching the time of year where you're starting to be able to see what the heifer calves are going to become, and the standouts are starting to stand out. And I think most, if not all, of the replacement heifers that I'm planning to keep this year were sired by Rivet. First is this white number 27 calf. She looks good to me, and I kind of know the pedigree of her mother. Her mother's half Hereford, half Angus, and this gives me a good cross or a good mix. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for with the heifer calves this year. Number 4 here would probably be on the list, except this is Smokey's sister, so odds are she is infertile, which is too bad because she's a nice looking little heifer. Probably my favorite heifer out of this group is number 16 here. Not only is she a neat looking color and put together well, but her mother is one of my favorite cows, number 14. Number 19 out of cow number 48 is one I've been watching as well. That calf was born over at the winter pasture, and I remember my wife was with me when we found it, and I said, this is one that we're probably going to keep as a replacement heifer because I really like the mother. And the calf has grown into everything that I hoped it would, so she is very likely on the list. So those are kind of the prospects that I'm watching. Obviously, it could all change by the time we wean. Somebody else might pull ahead, somebody else might fall behind, and I would also like to get them over the scale and see what their gain numbers are as well. Judging by how those heifer calves look that I just showed you, I would have to imagine that their scale numbers are going to look pretty good too. I think I'm going to turn the cow sprayer on right now. I need to fill it up. I've kind of made a habit of not just leaving it on all the time, but just kind of waiting until I can notice the fly pressure ramping up a little bit. I guess I could just leave that thing on all the time, and that's what I did last year, but what I've noticed is that when they are in this middle pasture, they're in and out of the corral 3, maybe 4 times a day, and when I have that full, that's 25 gallons, it'll only last about a day and a half. So at that rate, even just spraying dish soap on them, which is what I've been doing, can start to get expensive and unnecessary. So that's why I kind of wait until I see the fly pressure getting up there. Uh-oh, what do we have here? Oh shoot, that water trough sprung a pretty significant leak there. You guys remember, I spent a lot of time patching this and trying to limp it along a little bit further, but it might just be time for a new one. I was able to get another year out of it. And if you remember me patching that, then you might also remember me talking about how I was going to, or how I wanted to pour a slab there and put in a concrete trough. That's just not gonna be in the cards for this year. I got too many other things that need to get finished first. So I figure I can just buy a regular old water trough, and then when I do finally get around to pouring the concrete trough, I can pull the new one out and then I'll have a spare. Boy, I need to get some boards for this thing. Sure gonna be nice when it's done. Only thing that does have me a bit nervous about doing this is I noticed that some wasps built a nest under the top arm there of the sprayer, so hopefully I don't disturb them while I'm up there, because I'll be in a position where I won't be able to get away real quick. Rivet getting number 45 again. I'm sure the GoPro missed it because I had it aimed up, but Rivet's out there and he was riding number 45. That's like the 2nd or 3rd time I've caught him riding that same cow, and they're all about, you know, 3 weeks apart. So apparently she's continuing to come back into heat and not getting bred for some reason that I don't understand, because she didn't have any kind of problems with her calf this year that would, you know, lead me to suspect that there was an issue with her. It's a shame because I like number 45. She's a smaller cow, but she's put together real nice, and that's kind of what I would like to move towards. But she's not getting bred. Well, that's a problem. Hopefully that knocks those flies out a little bit. Well, look at that. The sun's not even down yet, and I think I've run out of stuff to do today. I hope you guys enjoyed the start of the pig feeder build. I have been thinking about how I want to build this for months now, maybe years. I can't really remember when I first kind of hatched this idea. I think this feeder is going to incorporate all the things that I want in it, and I'm excited to get it done. But I think that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.